Welcome back, Steeler fans, to the episode here at the SteelerFury.com podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Coleman. You know me as Smith is Smoking on the message boards, joined by the best co-host that money can't buy, Corey Karbowski, you know, Corey39, and Will Masek, you know him as Bradshaw to Ben. But boy, you know, I feel like celebrating again. I don't know about y'all, but lo and behold, you get rid of an inept offensive coordinator, and you get 400 yards of offense. I mean, did I not call it, though? I called it. I said, you know, we were going to see that just to put icing on the cake. And sure enough, we're having our cake and eating it too a little bit this week.
But how many points did you pick them to score, though? Because the points did not follow.
Well, I think the score I predicted was 23-10. So if Deontay would have caught the touchdown, I would have succeeded.
It's true. I think I'd have won the score game on the board if the Bengals don't, if the two teams don't like trade red zone turnovers. But anyway, yes, 400 yards of offense. We can't let that go by without a little celebration. So
yeah, shout out to Pat Fryermuth. Welcome back, guy. Not that like I don't want to take anything away from his big day, but I mean, like the Bengals, like we were all kind of talking about it as the game went on. They just kind of decided just like not to cover Pat Fryermuth for the majority.
It was weird. They were like, "Oh, you want to throw? You know, like we don't really believe you're going to throw to the middle of the field. So here's a couple of open windows for you."
Right. But I mean, the other nice thing is it wasn't. So a lot of his action was done up the seam, short and turn up the field. But then the other beautiful thing that we saw, we let our wide receivers run vertical routes, and boy, did we actually throw a deep ball or two. I mean, Kenny Pickett had two great throws to Deontay down the right sideline and Pickens down the left. I mean, that's what we've been missing out all year on offense. You know, we saw it in that Ravens game just because they saw that he was single covered and he beat whatever his face down the line and got that. But I mean, I think that's the last deep pass we really saw from Pickett that actually looked good.
I don't know. I feel like that's the one thing that he can do really well. He did it all preseason. He did it last year. Did it this year? Is that touch pass deep? You know, deep on the sideline.
1, 2, 3. Let it rip and leave it right.
Because then he's not worried about pass rush because pass rush doesn't have time to get to him, and he's just basically, you know, identifying a spot and keeping it in bounds. It's like a big mistake that most quarterbacks who are below average make is they let that ball drift out of bounds, and he seems to be able to hit right at it. So that to me doesn't. Not that those weren't great and very useful in terms of the game, but yeah, that doesn't exactly surprise me because, like I said, we've seen him do it, but it's just that even the last few weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, they haven't even been doing that. Mm-hmm. Like they were for like a whole year where, you know, end of last season, early this season, they were throwing those balls, but yeah, the last 2 or 3 weeks, it's like they really went into a shell.
Yeah, I mean, it's just nice to finally. I think the funniest part is, you know, supposedly Matt Canada didn't involve his assistant coaches in the game plan, you know, according to a few people out there in the Twitterverse. Week 1 away, Faulkner and Sullivan target the middle of the field multiple times. I mean, I got to give those two credit. They actually said, no, we're going to take shots. But what the curious part of it is to me is like, if Mike Tomlin wouldn't let Matt Canada try those things, how are we just now trying those things? I don't know. That's just in the back of my mind. It's like we let our first time offensive coordinator install a game plan, and then we let a guy call plays that hasn't done it in like a year or 2 years or something like that. And all of a sudden, hey, the offense takes off. I mean,
takes off.
Hey, that's takes off for our standards, buddy. I mean,
listen. You know, it was versus the 20s. We went from playing the number 1 defense in the league and then, you know, struggling to the next week playing the number 22 defense in the league and getting 400 yards, right? Mm-hmm. So it still, they didn't really translate that into points. Mm-hmm. But, you know, even if they got to 23, I mean, 23 is like not exactly lighting it up. So, yeah, that's the reality is it's just been so bad for so long that we'll take it, you know, as an improvement. I'm still... You know, it's like it's hard for me not to watch them and think that their quarterback still holds them back quite a bit. And we'll get to Deontay Johnson in a second, but the pass that Deontay dropped in the end zone was late and behind him. The pass to Deontay in the corner of the end zone that maybe Johnson could have fought back a little bit better for was also very late. Pickett was really lucky that was not picked because basically if he had thrown the ball with the correct direction and not behind Deontay as late as it was, it might have been picked because the defender was playing it, So like in this
And there were multiple misses.
Yeah,
Even
the
if
missed
one or two of them were
Pickens.
caught over the middle, that's kind of been his MO.
Yeah, Pickens, deep in that sailed over his head. Like, so this kind of stuff is not that, I can't think this is what we're really at.
Missing chunks like that is why you don't end up getting more than 16 points. That's kind of like where, the play calling matters a lot. But when you aren't hitting 30, 40-yard chunks, you're taking points off the board.
Right. I mean, I don't know, Jeremy, how much as a percentage would you say play calling was different? Like what, in terms of like different plays called, it didn't feel like it was really all that different. They just, the sequencing of it was a little bit better and the execution was a lot better than it had been. Like,
I'd say there was at least a 20% difference in play calling. And I solely based that off of just Pat Freiermuth's involvement in the passing game. Like you didn't see him going up the seams. You didn't see him just running and stopping and catching and going upfield. Like that part of the passing game has not existed until this past week with Pat Freiermuth. Like maybe his injury has held the offense back a little more than we thought. But I mean, I think that's a direct result of them going to a guy that one is fresh and we're getting back, but a guy that opens up the middle of the field. We really haven't had that. I think we've tried Allen Robinson in a little bit to try to do that, but people expect him to go out and pass and, out in routes, as where with at least Pat Freiermuth, there's the illusion that he might block someone on a run play. So, I mean, I'd say at least there was at least 20% different just based on how they used Pat Freiermuth and the fact that he caught 10 balls for almost 120 yards. So 20%. That's my answer. Well,
one thing I do want to, I saw we did some unbalanced formation stuff. I really liked how we utilized Darnell Washington this week. He was the lead blocker, like the end blocker on a lot of our runs, which is where, you see those toss sweeps and the kind of our wider zones that we were running and having success with. He was really taking his man. And I mean, there were some clips of him taking dudes 5-6 yards and throwing them to the ground. I still think, I get there's not that many balls to go around, but I think you got to find a way to get the ball in his hands a little more. He's probably one of our more dangerous yards after the catch guys, just because every time he doesn't go down on the first hit, it takes 3 or 4 guys to bring him down. He only has 4 catches on the year, and I think all 4 he's taken a squadron of defenders to bring him down. But I think where you have to really see that is more in the red zone, where even this week, once we got in that red zone, it was started to get a lot more attacking the sidelines. And that's kind of where you don't know if it's Kenny, you don't know if it's the OC, but getting some more design throws to where you're looking for even Pat over the middle, looking for Darnell over the middle, guys who can rumble a little bit after the catch. I think that would be pretty good. I
feel like Faulkner and Mike Sullivan might have seen Georgia play football in the last couple of years. Like it just felt like, oh, well, you got Broderick Jones and you got Darnell Washington. It's like, let's run.
Right.
Let's run the ball. And wait till this week. If you love the ground and pound and Yinzer football, you are going to really enjoy this week.
Right.
That's all I can say as a preview of Arizona. Go ahead.
We go throw a question to both of you. Did Darnell hold on the touchdown run?
I don't think so, because for the defender,
are you talking about Deontay Johnson? Talking about Deontay Johnson or different?
No, Najee's run where he was riding out. I think it was Jermaine Pratt, maybe, or someone.
What my view on holding has been is if they
was he holding? Was he holding?
Yeah, yeah. If the defender can separate and kind of get off to where he's pulling at all, I think you should call it. But Pratt was in a lockjaw. Like he was stiff. This hand was inside. This hand was a little out, but he wasn't moving at all. Like he was just backwards, no twisting, no anything. I don't think that's a holding. If he could have even pulled a twist off or leaned over to where some jersey was pulled, I would say call it. But I think he was just viced up so tight that I'm holding.
I don't know. I feel like if when you have your arm, a little bit outside like Washington did, if the defender tries to go, the run goes that way and the defender tries to go that way, it's one thing. But if I'm correct, I think he went.
His left hand was outside and the running back skirt outside. The right hand was inside. the defender ran around his left. So it wasn't like he was hooked outside. It was,
right. That's what I'm saying. It's like if you hook a
Yeah.
guy like that, you're going to get called. So
yeah,
it's, he missed him on his punch and he got too wide. So that's that was a talking point, I think, with him coming out of the draft, was his hand placement for blocking. But it's like you can see when he gets his hand in the right place, man. Broderick Jones, the same thing. By the way, the play that Najee quote unquote carried defenders for 10 yards. I don't know if you noticed, but it's like, okay, Najee Harris is upright and he's strong and tough to bring down, but Jesus Christ, Broderick Jones was like a one-man army pushing the defense. Like really, really nice to see, like a guy that gives a lot of effort blocking. And on the flip side of that, can we talk about the Deontay Johnson play on the fumble? Because this one is head scratching.
Well,
you guys remember I even defended George a little bit. I said when you have diva receivers, you're going to have to deal with diva attitudes. Like good receivers kind of had that attitude to them, but you can't do. That's one thing about George. He might kind of 60%, 70% some routes. You can still throw it to him and he still gets his ass in gear. With what Deontay did, I wouldn't put him on the field for at least the first half next game. Like there has to be something done to where, there's levels to it. If you don't block, that's one. You probably should get benched off that. But then you don't block. You see the loose ball. You don't go for it. But then there's no whistle blown. There's no whistle blown on that field.
He didn't see the ball, though.
No, it's worse. It's worse. His whole team starts chasing right in front of him, and he lets them go after the guy.
And he walks. He doesn't move at all. He just walks and stares him down. I defended George. I said receivers are divas, yada, yada, yada. I still have that standpoint. But to give that little effort on a critical play, it's a turnover play. Even if you don't block, you can do something. Then to not chase it, there's just multiple levels of disinterest. I think there has to be some form of punishment because that can't be the standard. The standard is the standard thing. You can't put a guy on the field after he does that.
Connor Hayward saved a touchdown and probably saved the game the way things were going with scoring. Mm-hmm. He was on the opposite side of the formation, past the line of scrimmage, and actually came all the way back across.
Squared up with him.
It's
like you chased him down. And you busted his ass so hard back.
I'm telling you, man. I've seen looking at the all 22. If Hayward doesn't make that kind of effort, that's a touchdown. That's easily going the other way. And then Deontay Johnson is really looking bad. He might have caught and cut. Because if it results in a touchdown, you're really in trouble.
Yeah, boy. I saw the play, and at first I was like, oh, he's down. That's why he didn't try. And it's like, and you go back and look at it again. It's just like, no, that's Deontay just not giving two fucks whatsoever.
No. Yeah, that was we've seen some poor reps from Steelers receivers this year. That's one of the worst ones. Yeah.
Yeah, that takes first place.
I do think you have to bench him. I can't imagine not benching him because now's the time to do it. You're playing a very poor team. You're playing them at home. You're playing them after you've just had a lot of momentum on your offense. You got your offense out of the doldrums and whatever. So now's the time to put it.
I said first half too. That would if it's my choice, if I'm head coach of the Steelers, it's got to be at least one game. I think a half has to be the minimum. There has to be some form because a drive could be the first quarter and then he's back in. What kind of punishment's that?
Yeah.
But a lengthy amount of bench sitting needs to go on to where you show the team, the receiving core, that's just not acceptable football.
Yeah, it's just pathetic, honestly. And honestly, once after I realized that it was just like the effort wasn't there, he didn't care at all. I was just like, I'm so ready to move on from this dude. He is not that special. He's good, but he's not special good. It's like you would think you could probably find a team to trade him away in the offseason because I think there's one more year left on his deal. I'm not saying that's an option or should be on the table, but it's like, boy, that's kind of my immediate thought was. It was like, damn, this is the first game without Matt Canada, and you get pissed because they called a run play and didn't throw it to you. That's exactly what crossed my mind. I was like,
well, and the thing is it's still, ideally, you know, we can argue if it was actually a touchdown or not based on the possession rules. I really don't think it matters. If you hold on to the ball, it's a touchdown.
Right.
Like, if you don't lose the ball as you're going out, it's a touchdown. So instead of throwing a fit about that, go out and help your team get back close to where
Exactly.
you could get another shot at a touchdown. Like, we're not going to call 8 straight run plays going into
No, I don't think it was because it was a run play. I think it's because he was mad about the touchdown getting overturned. And he was still talking about it and pointing at the score or pointing at the TV. You know, it's like he wasn't back in his head wasn't back in the game by the time they snapped the ball. It just happened to be right immediately after that fit. So I do think that, you know, he wasn't. I don't know if he's in a position where he's really pouting because they're running too much. I think it's just he just wasn't really, you know, thinking there should be another player right there. So,
and I'm not up to where Jeremy is, to where, I mean, if we traded him, I would see the value in it. But I think if you have a Deontay Johnson with his head on straight, that's a very good receiver.
Well, I'm not saying I want to move on.
Oh,
let me put that out there. I'm not saying I want to move on, but that's the thought that like crossed immediately through my mind. Like if you've like that was right out of the Terrell Owens playbook of how diva-ish can I get, you know, out there on the football field. Because no, I like Deontay Johnson. I think he brings a lot to the team. Don't get me wrong, but it's like I can go find a guy that can run slippery routes and actually hold on to the ball. Like that. That's the thought that kind of went through my mind. I'm not advocating for it, but like it just wouldn't surprise me if we get to the end of the season and he's still on his little diva bitch fest.
Hey, you think Kansas City would take him right now? Hello.
Yeah. Oh, and that's what I thought about. I'm like, and that's what I kind of think about when I'm like, you know, what if we trade him? I'm like, if there's a team that reins him in, I mean, that's a 1,300, 1,400 yard receiver if they put him in the right position. It's just to prevent this from happening, there has to be punishment. Like there has to be something that happens that shows him I can't do what I did again. So that's why I think this is, you know, pretty interesting, because Tomlin didn't really make a strong comment on it.
He did not, which is funny.
And Deontay on Twitter, I mean, he turned off his replies, and it's very vague comments, but really read as that he's whatever we won. Like, it was like he wasn't upset at all. He wasn't sorry. He was just like, oh well, tough play. So it's gonna be interesting to see what happens coming up with this Cardinals game.
Yeah, because my immediate thought also after all that was like, man, I missed the Bill Cowher days. Where he would have just gone over there and chewed him out for a good solid 5 minutes. Yeah, like I can't remember who I saw posted or whatever, but there was like a clip, you know, about Bill Cowher. It was an 8-minute segment about how good of a leader Bill Cowher was and how he knew how to, you know, cater to some players, but then get in the grill on some other guys' player. And I was like, that's a moment where we could have used the Bill Cowher getting your grill type of.
Well, it'd be nice if they had coordinators who were a little. I mean, you either have to have a head coach who's more like that, or you have to have somebody on your staff that everybody respects that can lay it down. You know, let the head give cover to the head coach to not have to, you know, who can try to you know, work you a little differently. Like maybe Deontay Johnson is a cat that needs encouragement and praise rather than, you know, him. But I don't know, because everybody's different. I definitely, as a player in all the sports, I positively responded better to the coaches that were all about teaching me and about encouraging me whenever I did something good or learned something or did something better. And I didn't really I don't feel like I grew with the coaches that were just mad all the time, or mad about something or yelling about a thing that it would have been better to just explain. But you know, everybody's wired differently, man. Some people need to get yelled at, need to get fired up. I don't know.
Right.
Can't explain it.
But anyway, outside the passing game, the ground game looked pretty good. Both guys ran the ball really, really well. Najee almost cracked 100, actually.
Does Najee though, does he look like he's running much more upright now than he did like when he first came into the NFL? Like for some reason he looks tight, or he's not 100% physically. Maybe I'm just reading too much into it, but I see him run now, and I just think he's so upright for such a big guy running.
Well, I also think it's this illusion that he knows he's a bigger back, so he thinks he can drag people. You know, I don't think so. All the time he plays with that great pad level, because normally he's like, oh, well, I can power through this tackle anyway. You know, I think he's had
My theory with this is that he watches a
Derrick
ton
Henry.
of Derrick Henry.
The other guy who runs like that.
My theory, because that was the guy before him. He's been a top 2 or 3 Alabama running back. They're kind of built. I mean, Henry's probably got an inch and a half on Najee, but I think the big difference is Henry's a lot longer than Najee is. I think Najee, what it has to be is a longer torso, because Henry is a lot stridier, which is why he's a lot faster than Najee. So my theory is that he idolizes Derrick Henry, which isn't a bad person to idolize, but he's just not the same body type. And, ideally for us, we want Najee to be a Derrick Henry level player, but Najee would have to run like Najee runs and how Najee ran in high school and college, which was not how he runs now.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, Derrick Henry's probably 0.2 of a second faster than a 40. Mm-hmm. So, like, they're not comparable athletes, but build-wise, yeah, they're similar.
But anyway, just a nice win, with the
shout out to Trent Thompson.
Yeah, Trent Thompson. Yeah, good thing. I'm glad you brought him up. Boy, sure looks like we have found a player there to come up with a pick. That honestly a lot of players wouldn't get over to. The play was designed to clear out to get that ball to Chase, and he didn't fall for it 1 second. He accelerated and got in the passing lane and got the ball. So kudos to him. Just really unprecedented find there. Another midseason find. I know Darius Rush was supposed to play more. I didn't really see him out there, but
I didn't really see him either. Probably
it's the same. It's what you would expect. Pretty decent in man reps and lost in cover in zone. But that's for a guy that's only been playing defensive back for like 3 years and has probably never played zone
right
much. That's just going to be a work in progress.
But anyway, good team win in the post Matt Canada era. Let's see if we can stack another one as Arizona comes to town this week. But what are some matchups we need to watch out for them? I mean, I'm going to start out with the most obvious one. We have got to keep contained against Kyler Murray. We have got to keep him in the pocket and make him make throws from the pocket. If you let him get outside, that's where he can do his quick feet, dance a little bit, make some guys look. You make him look like he's playing Madden type moves and stuff to get throws off. Not near as talented as receiving core as he's had in the past, with Duke Hopkins moving on. But I mean, he's got a nice little array of receivers and a tight end who's kind of emerging here late. But I mean, just my big thing for our edge rushers and guys rushing, just don't lose contain this week. Don't let him out to the side where he can make something happen. Make him stay in the pocket and make those throws. Let's make a 5-10 quarterback throw over his line and try to pass the ball over Keanu Benton, Cam Hayward, TJ Watt, all those guys. So that's my kind of matchup of the week. Just keep Kyler Murray in the pocket. Corey, let's go to you next. What's a good matchup you like?
I'm a little nervous. I'm not sure. I'm trying to look it up. I can't really figure it out. Would this be James Conner's first game against us?
It's funny. I was thinking this could be his first game against Black and Gold since he's been out there. I don't think we've played.
I thought we missed him once, but here I'm looking right now. I will tell you.
I don't think he has, from what I'm looking at.
By the way, I'm angry because you stole my freaking matchup. But here, let's see. Splits versus teams, career versus Pittsburgh. Yeah, I think you guys are right that he hasn't played the Steelers. He has not played the Steelers.
So that guy was a University, Pitt University, whatever you want to call it. And he immediately goes to the Steelers. I'm willing to bet, and it's a home game, I'm willing to bet that dude's going to run harder than he probably ever has since he came back from, the whole cancer thing that he came back from when he ran for however many yards in that first game back. Mm-hmm. This is going to be a huge game for him. He loves the city of Pittsburgh. Hindsight, probably could have kept him depending on the contract.
Oh, the contract was going to be cheap too. That's
it's kind of like a Mike Hilton and a Cam Sutton thing where we just kind of let them go for just to go. But I'm willing to guess that he's going to run really, really hard against us. It might not matter. Their O-line isn't the prettiest looking, but that could be a minor issue in terms of trying to separate in the game if we don't get an early lead, which I don't see us really getting, even with the new OCs.
Mm-hmm. So, Will, how about a matchup from you?
Well, it was going to be James Conner. I was just going to say, I feel like, the one way that Arizona could stay in this game is Kyler Murray looked really rusty. Like every once in a while, make a really good play last week. Like something where you're like, oh yeah, that's Kyler Murray. Like he can play. And then was missing wide open guys and just in general looked a little discombobulated. I feel like it's just he can't possibly help but be rusty. He missed a lot of time. So if Kyler Murray, who you already mentioned, plays closer to the level of what's expected from him, and Arizona really tries to win the game, like I think for a little while there they were so obviously tanking. So maybe the instruction to him was like, look, man, don't do anything crazy. Just get rid of the ball and do the manage the situation, but don't worry about winning the game. But if Kyler Murray plays a little bit more like himself, and if James Conner is able to, and the Cardinals are able to use their one really dependable weapon on offense, which has been James Conner since he's been there, then yeah, they could put a little sting in it. I think the issue is on the other side. I think what's really going to tell the tale of this game is Arizona might be one of the worst teams against the run in modern memory. I just feel like they're, especially where they're at right now, maybe not earlier this season, maybe not over the course of the whole season, but like the last couple of weeks, they just look completely gash. Every run's a gash. Like they're not stuffing the run plays. Like they're playing a 3-4 defense, but like a guy like Jonathan Ledbetter, who's their defensive end, he's a long, sort of the old school Steelers style, long guy, 285 pounds, 6'4", 6'5", whatever. But they have Lopez in the middle. They're just not really, they don't have like studs on the defensive line. Like even when the Steelers haven't been the best defense, they've always had some guys on that defensive line that are space eaters or solid against the run, at least dependable against the run, even though not great. And I feel like, the matchup really is the interior of the Steelers offensive line. And for that matter, the guys we mentioned earlier, Broderick Jones and Darnell Washington blocking on the edge. I just feel like that the Steelers offensive line has a chance to overpower Arizona. And it might be a week where, the biggest, okay, here's a real matchup. It's the Steelers offensive coordinator and brain trust and head coach outsmarting themselves and coming out and throwing the ball all over the yard to try to make Kenny Pickett feel better or something, or Deontay Johnson or whatever, because I think that'd be I'm normally an advocate for throwing the ball a lot. I feel like this is a game where, play action might do you some good, but they're going to be able to run all over Arizona.
Yeah, I agree. Like you mentioned, kind of play action or whatever, because we just used Pat Freiermuth, probably the best we've ever used him, career game. Boy, do I think we can go back and do that against guys named Josh Woods, Chris Barnes, Ezekiel Turner. Stop me if you've heard a name yet that you recognize. That's
you go pretty deep on the draft, and I know who Chris Barnes is, but there aren't that many cats.
I do too, but we all dive pretty deep into the draft. Honestly, I kind of felt the same way about their defensive line. I recognize Stills and Ledbetter because I remember trying to recruit them out of high school, but I don't know who their nose tackles are. Who the hell is Roy Lopez and Kevin Strong? I couldn't tell you who those guys were before.
He aptly named Kevin Strong, and that's pretty good.
Right.
By the way, I don't, small thing, but Pat Freiermuth has done that 3 times in a row against the Cincinnati Bengals. How many other times in his career has he had a game like that? Not many.
It's against good linebacker. Those are considered the premier linebacker.
But it's something about the way that the Bengals want to play the Steelers. They're like, we don't really. Freiermuth doesn't scare us, I guess. I don't know. It seemed like he was, on some of those that's spacing routes. It's just it's the zone drop for the linebackers. Tight end goes 8 yards and turns around. It's that's not really a big, he caught the ball, yes, and he got hit and he held on to the ball, and all those things are great. But yeah, it worries me. I would like to see him duplicate and see the Steelers duplicate that kind of usage against better teams. This week is
And then if you're seeing a lot of man, then that's when you throw your fade routes and go routes to George Pickens and Deontay Johnson, because
That's it.
I mean, that was our whole point this whole year is you have the pieces to be a good offense. Like you have guys who can sit in zones with Robinson and Freiermuth. You have guys who can beat man or just take it off a guy, man, Pickens and Deontay. That's what made the beginning of the year until, prior to last week so frustrating, because you have the guys available to you.
Yeah.
Right. True. But yeah, just, I hate to say it, but, I don't want this to be one of those letdown games. It always seems like Tomlin has like a letdown game against a team that, we should.
Well, we just had one prior to the last week. So.
Yeah, I guess you're right. That's been checked off for this season.
But do you think Cleveland was a letdown game?
With DTR quarterback, it really
I don't know. I just feel like that's offense playing against a superior NFL defense. That's just what it looks like. Mm-hmm. When you're an average to below average offense and you play a great defense and you don't get any turnovers, to favor you. Yeah, yes, the defense was a little bit, lagging in the turnover department, but they also had a lot of new faces.
I'll say this: I'll consider it a letdown game because I'm pretty sure, I was still doing my my superstition pick where I picked against, but everyone picked for the Steelers that week, so that's why I'm considering it a letdown game, because that doesn't happen often.
What, the Browns?
I thought you picked the Steelers.
Nope.
Oh, he picked the Browns.
Did you? Oh, okay.
But you know what? One more matchup I think we need to put out there. Minkah Fitzpatrick is back this week, boys. That's a big addition to this secondary, for a huge addition to the secondary. It allows KZ to play more in his spot. Hopefully we get his, and then, we've heard that Trenton Thompson has supposedly earned more playing time. So hopefully he gets out there some more too. So maybe KZ drops more down to the slot every now and then just to take a guy there. But I'll say that the one last thing, and I mentioned Minkah because of this. I am a little skittish just about Rondale Moore's ability to break, make plays from the slot. He's one of those shifty type wide receivers that Pittsburgh has always had trouble covering. Kind of worry the same thing about Marquise Brown just because he has deep speed. I don't know if we have anyone that can really match up with him from a quickness standpoint on the outside. Porter's been playing great, don't get me wrong, but he's more of a physical, get in your face type of guy. Brown's not one of those guys you can press and lose, because if you do, he's gone. So I'm not saying that I think Arizona has an advantage there, but it's just I think this secondary is going to need to stay up on its toes. That's all. Just be cognizant of the fact that those guys can make plays with a, better quarterback play. I mean, shoot, those guys were honestly, I think those guys were playing better with Josh Dobbs than they were Kyler Murray, but it is what it is. He's in Minnesota now. So any other matchups, gentlemen? I think we.
Oh, wait. Josh Dobbs just threw another interception. Sorry.
Oh, hey, there we go.
Oh, what a game. It's like if they had anybody else to go to, they would go into him.
That actually, before we move completely past, it does kind of tie into one thing I did want to say. Josh Dobbs seemed to have kind of be running out of his backup quarterback kind of, energy thing that we always talk about where you get a couple games.
Right.
That's one thing I did want to mention with this new offensive play calling system we have going on is that, week one of a new system, especially midseason, no one knows what you're throwing out there.
Mm-hmm.
And, you're expected to get some wins for week one. But
they're like, oh my God, you're throwing to the middle of the field?
Yeah.
Like, amazing.
And then, I could be wrong, but it felt a lot of the time like the second first down we would go play action, then run, or it'd be run, pass on the first one. Where, if there's a gut feeling that there's kind of a pattern going on, there probably is. I don't really care enough to go back and chart it or whatever. But we will start to see that, 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, where if we start getting stacked boxes and, we don't really have advantages on, our scripts coming out of the first half and the second half, that's probably going to be because what we're doing is predictable. So it's nice. Like, it's nice to see the new play calls, but it's tough to be a play caller. It's completely different to play design. And I'm a little skeptical that in 3 or 4 weeks, we're not going to be a little predictable, especially with guys that aren't really that experienced in it.
Sure. How long can it last? You know?
Yeah, like and you know, I could be wrong. They could be fine, and they could, you know, be able to change
I
stuff
think
up.
probably what you're going to see is Pickett's finally going to throw some turnovers, throw some interceptions, because it's been getting tighter coverage on the outside and the throws are later, and he's waiting a little bit longer to make sure stuff is really open, and then the overthrows over the middle. It's like you do overthrows over the middle, somebody's going to get you eventually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, eventually when you play a top tier defense, like we did in Cleveland, where he didn't look near that good or accurate or even trying stuff. Eventually, something will happen. So
yeah. I believe
with pass rush.
I believe it's the beginning of this year. It could have been the end of last year. It might be both. But I remember that we talked about how just because it's a tipped interception doesn't mean that Kenny is not at fault for it. Yeah. And it's kind of like I could see some of those interceptions coming back where there's some tight windows that are popped up or things like that where, it's not seeing people, which, shouldn't happen if you're not throwing with a ton of anticipation and you're staring down guys. But I could see, like Will said, some more where maybe it's not necessarily a blatant interception, but it's more of like a tip and someone catches it, because I remember we talked about that on the show at least once before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can't get as lucky as the Bengals with Jake Browning and 2 tip passes going to Jamar Chase for half his yardage. Good God. I mean, seriously, honestly, he had a pedestrian day if you take those 2 tip balls that fall right into his lap that he just catches because everyone thinks the play is going to be over and just runs that, outruns everyone. But
by the way, I think that was the most impressive day for Joey Porter so far.
I was about to say, I'll take his 1 pass interference penalty if it results in 30 earned yards for Jamar Chase. So, I mean, even if you want to add those 15 on, 45 yards matched up one-on-one for most of the day, that's a stellar game. I'm not really going to count those tips, and one of the tips wasn't even on Porter. So,
yeah, absolutely. So, with that being said, there are some other games happening this week. Some good ones, some ones with big time playoff implications. Going to jump to one right away, which, if you would have told me at the beginning of the year that these 2 teams were fighting for playoff positions, I would have said, yeah, right. I'll give you $100 right now. But Denver is headed to Houston. It's inexplicable that this is for a playoff spot, but Houston is at home. They are favored by 3.5. Corey, I'll let you take this one.
So Denver's defense has been very, very good since that 70 bomb dropped on him by the Dolphins. I'm not a real believer in that team. I'm a bit more aligned with Will's point of view that good offense is always really going to win in the playoffs. But the Texans have slowed down a little bit as of late. They're not running as hot as they were. Not sure if it's really – I haven't watched their last 2 weeks. I've just kind of read about it a little and seen the scores. But I think that they're a better team than the Broncos, even with the Broncos' electric defense. I could see this being a really tight one, kind of a low score. So I'll go Broncos to cover, but Texans to win.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Well,
yeah, I think this is one of the 2 hardest games to pick this week. I agree that I think Houston is a little bit better. It's just deceiving, though, because – do you want to average out what Denver has done throughout the whole year? In that case, they're not that good. If you want to say on this win streak, what they're doing, I just have a feeling that the win streak at some point is going to come to an end. They may not even have to play poorly for that to happen because Houston is capable of winning. They were, I don't know. It's hard not to be impressed with CJ Stroud as a rookie. Put his team in position to win last week, and it just didn't miss the kick with the backup kicker. But, I kind of feel like Houston is just, like as Corey said, fading a little bit, and Denver's coming on. So, that's what makes it hard. I'll take Houston. I just feel like it's a very close game, but I'll take the home team.
Yeah, I'm with Will on this one. I like Houston. I like CJ Stroud, honestly. I just really like what he's been able to do as a rookie. It's hard not to be impressed with what he's done in his rookie year. I mean, Tank Dell continues to score every week in, week out, just look absolutely uncoverable at times with his route running. It's insane.
Nico, my guy you're talking about, sauce on it.
Yeah. I mean, Nico Collins is playing really well, and it looks like they're going to get Noah Brown back this week, which I think is a big deal. They've been running without Noah Brown. Honestly, I think that's the biggest reason why they've slowed down. A third capable receiver that's really been a reliable catcher for Stroud. With that back, and then Dalton Schultz becoming more of a, that fourth role, which he's played pretty well in, that teams kind of forget about. With him, a revamped running game with Singletary, and Pierce is supposed to be healthy this week too. I just like Houston a lot. They're a trendy pick this year. It's kind of fun to see them play. I hope they pull out a win. Another game that's going to, believe it or not, determine some playoff things. Probably the biggest game of the week. San Fran headed to Philadelphia. Boy, Philadelphia has been through the ringer lately. They've been playing some big time teams. I think it's been Dallas, Buffalo, and now San Fran. Boy, talk about murderers row. I don't know if this is correct or not, but I wrote down that San Fran is favored by 2 heading into Philly. Not sure if that's correct off the top of my head. Maybe I wrote that down wrong. But Will, go ahead and start talking about this, and I'll make sure on the line here.
Philly they have this ability to win games that at this point that they probably even shouldn't. They're sort of like the equivalent of what the Steelers were, 10 years ago. That they just, you get them in a close game and they're going to come out on top. I feel like they've overplayed. Their record is a little bit better than where they really are, and so I expect a slight reversion to the mean only because they're playing against, when they're healthy, maybe the best team in the NFL. So I'll take San Francisco to win and even cover, maybe at 2 points. Although a 1 point win still counts.
Yeah, I was right, actually. I did write that down correct. San Fran is favored by 2 heading into Philly. I wasn't sure I wrote that down right. The home team normally starts at -3, and then you start away from there. So, Corey, what do you think about this game?
Yeah, I'm with Will on this one. I think the Eagles aren't 10-1 good. I'm pretty sure that's their record. They're good. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're really good, but they've gotten away with a couple games that they probably shouldn't have. I like the Niners a little more, especially in like a playoff setting, which makes it tough. If I almost would have liked the Eagles a little more if they had dropped a game or two before this.
Mm-hmm.
But this 10-1 record feels a little too good to be true. So I'm going to go with the 49ers here.
Yeah, boy, funny thing is there's a lot of chirping out of Philadelphia. Hassan Reddick has been notably been talking to the media this week because, he's talking about how San Fran is still crying about how they couldn't play with us last year because of the Brock Purdy injury. So I think the 49ers are going to come out pretty motivated to prove that, they are the better team, that they were not able to throw their best shot, last year because that was the championship game, wasn't it? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that was the champ. Well, wasn't much of a championship game, but I think San Fran comes out and wants to prove that they're the better team, that they are, despite, their 3-game losing streak they had back in October, I think it was, is that they are just as good, if not better, than the Eagles. So I like the 49ers here.
By the way, Jeremy, I think there's a chance San Francisco doesn't lose another game this year.
Yeah, honestly,
the quarterback doesn't blow out his elbow. I would have to think they're the favorite.
Yeah, and one area where I think they can do that is, and they didn't get him involved much last week because they didn't need to, but George Kittle against these linebackers, I think is a definitely an area where they can capitalize. Eagles have been known to be a little leaky against tight ends, and this is the type of game where I think Kittle kind of goes off. So I like the 49ers here. Let's do one more. Detroit is headed to New Orleans. Detroit is favored by 4. A little bit of playoff implications because the Vikings and Packers are a little bit on Detroit's heels here. Not too much, but boy, someone's got to win the NFC South, right? So the Saints need to start stacking wins here if they want to win. Unfortunately, that's just not going to happen this week. Olave went out with a concussion this past game. Rasheed Blackshear left. Like, how many more weapons can go down for Derek Carr before they just have to resort to Taysom Hill doing the entire offense? So I like Detroit here, especially in a bounce back game after they kind of got embarrassed a little bit on Thanksgiving. Packers kind of took it to them on Thanksgiving. So my money's on Dan Campbell being pissed off and getting those guys ready to play. Corey, I'll go with you. So I have them winning and covering the 4.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I think one, they're just a better team than New Orleans, and especially with Olave out, that's really been their number one guy. Blackshear's been a nice threat going deep, so that's another loss, and even just embarrassment. Like, there's just no one left really. I mean, Kamara can get all the dump off passes you want, but they'll rally to that. The Lions are just a better team straight up. I'm going to go with the Lions here to cover.
Okay, Will?
Yeah, I don't think this game is too close. As you said, I think Detroit is a, quality team, unlikely to, do anything other than bounce back from a loss playing against somebody. It's not like, it's not like they got to play against a team that is unbeatable and at the top of their game. It's not like for instance, if they were going to Denver this week and Denver's hot, then, like I might feel a little differently about it, but I think it's just the Saints are just sort of a mess. And yes, I know they're still in the running because it's the NFC South and whatever, but I'll take Detroit.
All right. Let's cap it off with our – sorry?
I was just going to say, by the way, you didn't pick the New York Jets Atlanta Falcons game, which is the game this week in the score in our, picks that I had the most. I still don't know who to pick.
Yeah.
They're like that Spider-Man meme where they're just like pointing at each other.
Yeah. Do you play this week? Should you play? Do I? Yeah.
All right, fine.
Yeah.
You don't have to pick it. I just wanted to say it's just like it's if anybody in the audience has a suggestion for me, hit me up.
I'll rapid fire it. I'll just Jets real quick. The Atlanta offense is so disjointed. I'm just gonna go solo over that Atlanta.
Have you seen the Jets offense? I'm sorry.
Yeah, very sad, bro. I mean, if I had to pick one, I'd choose Atlanta. At least Atlanta's won some games, But I mean, Will, throw one out there since you have to.
I'll take the Jets only because they seem to be, on this streak of like 2 horrible games followed by some win that you're like, how did they win? Yeah. So
after all, they're playing for Aaron Rodgers to get cleared to play. So, boy,
I didn't hear. So he has. Is he? I heard that he might practice tomorrow, but that's what the word was in New York. But I don't know if that's true.
Gotcha. I mean, it's a little bit too late to the party for the Jets. The AFC is just way too crowded for it to really matter this late. They'd have to win out, and then
tough. Yeah.
In the wild card race would keep losing. And it's like, honestly, Pittsburgh has a pretty favorable schedule here. There's some other teams, Buffalo.
I think the Steelers could be 10-7 and not make it. And the Jets' best hope would be to finish 10-7. So yeah, I feel like the Steelers have been written.
Right. I mean, Buffalo is going to be trying like mad to finish, and they're a 6-6 ball club. So I mean, I just think it's a little too late for the Jets. But we talked about a 0-star matchup there. Let's talk about a 5-star matchup now. Those Arizona Cardinals are headed to your Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh is favored by 5.5. I'll go ahead and grab the Bulls by the horn on this one. I think Pittsburgh wins and covers. Murray's good. He's not great, in my opinion. And I think Minkah Fitzpatrick being back is just going to really – they're just going to clamp down. They're going to make him – make throws that he doesn't want to make. And I'll give us one thing. We've actually picked off a lot of balls this year. We're finding ways to get turnovers. So with TJ Watt having a favorable matchup against Paris Johnson, with Alex Highsmith having a favorable matchup against, I don't even know who their left tackle is off the top of my head. It's just one of those types of games. I feel like we should dominate from start to finish. Whether we do,
DJ Humphries. There, I pulled it out of my head.
Thank you. I'm not saying we will dominate, but it's got the feel of one of those games where Pittsburgh should win comfortably. So I don't know. That's almost like putting a nail in the coffin there. But I will go Pittsburgh 26-13. Corey, how about you take it?
I'm going to take the Steelers 20-17. I'm not completely convinced by Kenny's accuracy overall. I feel like he overperformed a bit last week, which means we'll probably due for a couple more deep ball misses this week. I do think we're going to be able to run the ball. I'm not sure it gives us that many points. I think the Cardinals are going to try and run the ball too. And I think some of their chunks might be some Kyler Murray scrambles because we do have edge rushers who get upfield and get after it. So it's going to be on those interior D linemen to cave the pocket so there's nowhere to go. I just think they find a way to hang around, maybe pop a long one in the third or fourth to make it a little closer. But I think we do win, but just kind of a bit of a nail biter at the end, 20-17.
What would the Steelers win be without a nail, but nails being bit?
Right.
Yeah, I think this, like I said, I alluded to a couple times earlier. I just think the Cardinals are so bad at stopping the run that not only do I think the Steelers will feature a run heavy offense, I think they might even be able to get some points out of it because if you're just able to pound it at them and then hit them with the screen or God forbid play action a couple of shots downfield, yeah, that's enough to get past 20. The Cardinals, I suspect the most efficient part of their offense, the part that might actually be the most effective, will be James Conner. So I'm not only running it, but you know what he's great at? He's maybe one of the best running backs I've ever seen at the delay out of the backfield. So you stay in, you're blocking, and then you time it. You have this. He just has the feel for when to get out and make himself available, and he seems to get a lot of mileage out of those kinds of plays. With the way the Steelers are going to come after Murray, probably, then that tells me that they might have success with that dump off to James Conner. But even so, you mentioned Minka coming back. I'm sure of all the guys in the NFL that Kyler Murray does not want to see on the other side, it's Minka Fitzpatrick. I don't know if you remember, but he had those couple of really big plays against Kyler Murray the last time they played in Arizona, where when Murray was like sort of at his peak and he thought he had a clear path to the corner and Minka came out of nowhere and flattened him. So yeah, so I'm going to call it 24-13. I think it's for the Steelers a gigantic blowout, but it's all built on the fact that I just I think if they come out and either struggle to run the ball against Arizona, that's a red flag. If they come out trying to throw the ball over the yard, I'm going to need to see them have success with that, and then follow it up with the run game to put it away. But it wouldn't be like them so much to do that against a team that's just struggling right now to stop the run.
Yeah, kind of building one more thing on that. I know Najee had the stats this past week. I think Jaylen Warren has a big day this week. If he can get out to the edge, we all saw what he can do against the Browns. He outran everyone. This is a team where if you beat him to the edge, there's not a whole lot, that can, track him down. Even though it is a better secondary. Jalen Thompson's a serviceable safety. Buda Baker's a very good
Baker, yeah.
So we will see. But thank you all for another episode here at the SteelerFury.com podcast. Thank you for tuning in. I'm your host, Jeremy Coleman. You know me as Smith is Smoking on the message boards, joined by Will Massasack, Bradshaw to Ben, and Corey Karbowski, Corey 39. Thank you again, gentlemen, and hopefully we get to try some Redbird in Pittsburgh. Here we go.
Here we go, Steelers. Maybe 12 wins.
What?